I'm Lee, and this week I want to talk about my forge. Now, for the last 2 years, I've been using a Mr. Volcano Hero 2 forge. Now, this forge is pretty resilient. It's not huge, but I did want to talk about it a little bit. Now, I've had this forge for 2 years now, and this will be the second rebuild I've had to do. So about one a year so far. You can see the K-wool is showing right there, which is not great. I should have stopped a while back. My refractory is falling back off of this thing. So I'm ready for a redo, but I wanted to talk about the advantages and pluses of it. Now, the biggest plus of this forge is the price, because this thing, whenever I bought it, it was like maybe 80 bucks. And it's probably still close to there. With the K-wool in it, it's roughly 6 inches inside. With the fire brick, right around 4 to the peak. Not a whole lot of room, but for all the projects I've done, it works out. You sometimes have to finagle something in here a little strange if it's too wide, but it works out. I've made tons of tools in this forge. It's really good for this stuff. Smaller stock, that's 3/4 inch bar. It works perfect. Now even the bigger stuff, like the hook, the dividers, the compass, the draw knife, the string line, all that was made in this forge, and it worked out fine. You just have to learn to finagle it around a little bit. Now there are disadvantages to this forge, one of which is I cannot weld in it. It does not get hot enough for me to weld. For other people maybe, the internet said you could. I've never had no luck at it. I could never get it hot enough. The other disadvantage is there's a huge cold spot inside the forge, which I'll show you. And it may be an advantage also. Sometimes I can get a piece of steel in here just right and have it sitting in the cold spot, have the back end heat up, and I leave a mass that's not too hot. Now the hose went bad on this one, so I actually changed it to where I have a regulator. Well, it had a regulator on it before, but one that you couldn't adjust. This one I can adjust, and it's got a gauge on it. It works out a lot better. I can see how much pressure I'm running inside of the forge. Usually I keep it around 20, and it works pretty good. And then plus, once your propane tank starts diving, you'll see it drop below 20, and you know you're starting to run out of propane, or at least the tank's freezing up. Now the fire brick is not the original one. You can see these are pretty broken up, but they work pretty good. Sometimes you'll see that there's a gap right here. Now at first I hated this little gap right here, but it's actually the hottest spot of the forge because the way that it comes down in, this gets pretty toasty, so I can usually slide a bar of steel right next to the brick, and it works out pretty good. This side's a little bit colder. Obviously there's a cold spot right in here. Now for the money, I think that this thing's worth it. It's 80 bucks. You have to put all the refractory in yourself. You have to put the K-wool in, but it comes with all that stuff. It even comes with a rebuild. Now this time I had to buy some refractory because I'm out of the original that come with it. So I am going to rebuild this one. There's a forge build in my near future, but for now I'm going to keep running this one, and then once the other forge is built, this is going to be a nice backup. And plus, it's better for smaller stuff. Propane use isn't terrible, and it works out fine. So overall, my opinion is it's a pretty decent forge. Now if you're a production blacksmith, I would not advise you get that. I don't. I'm just a weekend warrior. This thing works out perfect. Now, I do want to get something a little bit bigger inside so I can do bigger projects. And I can get it hotter too. I want to be able to weld with it. But for just a basic forge, that's so cheap, you really can't turn it down. So I hope you enjoyed this week's video. I'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching.